order on the agenda are the minutes of September 5th, 2018. The wish of the board.
Moved as written. Second.
Any corrections, edits, changes? Nicely done. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to public comments.
So, I have one, Leo Thompson. As I was walking in the building, it was serendipitous, I got one of my reminders, and I wanted to say thank you to whoever found this. My phone is blank right now. Is that something that came out of last year's meetings with the top of my head who came in, parents or middle schoolers gave feedback and whatnot, and I know definitely the one I was in, some of the feedback I gave was communication. I think I've said that before. And Remind, which is this new system, I have only started using it. I haven't heard much else, and I apologize if we talked about it on the back to school night because I did not make that. But I want to say thank you because whoever found it deserves a really big gold star sticker. It's fabulous.
Any other public comments?
Just a question, this is my first meeting. You talked about the school transportation. Is now the time for comments, or is that going to be addressed as an item?
Yeah, so the way public comments work is this is a chance for you to talk at us, basically. We're not going to engage in a conversation. If you have something you'd like to say, this is where you would say it. But we're not going to engage in a conversation.
Will there be a conversation?
There'll be a conversation with the board.
Okay,
Any other public comments? Okay, agenda review. Do we have anything to add?
We do. We have one consent item to add, an informational item.
You want to add the NBC updates? Moving forward.
Sure.
Yesterday was the first meeting. It wasn't that exciting. If we can plug it in moving forward, at least for budget season.
Sure. So added under A, one of the dots?
Yeah, last dot.
Last dot?
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be a quick one.
Anything else? Any changes? All right. Consent items, we have one.
Yes, we have staff notification that if you have questions for, we would need to discuss in non-public. If there's no questions, it can be active on session.
Anyone have any questions on this? All right. I'd entertain a motion to accept the resignation letter.
So moved. Second.
Retirement, excuse me, not resignation. Well, it says resignation.
Yeah.
I think. Retirement letter. Seconded. Any discussion on the letter itself? Seeing none, all in favor? All in favor?
With great sadness.
With great sadness.
Aye.
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 Please let her know that we're very, very sad.
Will do.
All right. After school transportation. Kelly. Hi. Would you like to join us for this discussion? So we've had a number of calls and a number of questions. Patty, I think you had a conversation with Kelly. Can you guys give us kind of an update of where things are at this point?
Sure. I, after the last meeting, when I spoke to Kelly about what the board had decided, that was passed on to parents, and I think it was quickly brought to our attention that there were students going to a lot of various places that we were not necessarily aware of, and when the word was sent that transportation would not be provided for after-school daycare, that affected a lot of families. So I know Kristen dealt with a lot of questions and comments at the school level. I had at least one email, Kelly had a lot of phone calls, so we started to gather some information, and it was brought to our attention, and there's a question and answer document in here that Kelly provided answers to some questions that we had about students who, usually in one or two children at a time, may go to a babysitter's, or an 8th grade girl may go to someone's house to watch their kids after school. So there's a lot of different scenarios where students don't necessarily go home on the bus that they are assigned to. And I think the question and the bigger issue is how we would track that. So it's been, I guess, according to Kelly, not really an issue when there's 1 or 2 kids going here or there. They work it out. There's a note at the front office. The issue is when there's a bus, like I think it's Green Bus, right? That's full. Whatever bus it was, that's full. And if we were to add more kids to that to go to a different place after school, it would exceed our capacity. So I think that's really where the issue is, and where it was brought to light when we had one specific bus that could not accommodate an after-school program because there were, I think, 8 or 10 kids looking to use that bus. That's sort of a summary of where we're at.
So we got to the point where right now no one is going. We're not providing any transportation to any after-school programs, right? So, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Other than your regular after-school program.
Okay.
Or like the town program.
All right. So that was, were parents given a bunch of notification on the change, or was it a quick change, or?
I think phone calls were made 2 different days, and then we still had some more that were coming. So I did find actually about some release from the office call, but we know that Friday will be the last day that we can do this. So we really need to come with. We don't want kids to not have a place to go after school. That's not a goal. But we have to make sure we have room on the buses for kids to live on. So, like Patty said. I don't know how these ladies do it now, because there's a lot of schools that have kids go all over the place. Grandmas, they go to this after school program, they go here. I don't even know how they keep track of it. They're not even looking for a way to do that.
Right.
Because they have an after school program similar to yours, where the bus can be half full with just those kids going like we used to be. Before we have now, and they're trying to go with software to track it. So these kids have different schedule every other day, and it's hard to know. They know when they're going to garbage can keep track, and they're supposed to have, and when they're supposed to be that day. So it's it's not a case of not wanting to be able to help people out. It's just how do we do it, and how do we decide who can and who can't, where we shut off? Is that fair to others?
Right.
I don't know what the answer is.
Right. Sure.
We may want Kelly to join us at the table where the microphones are located so that people who are in this meeting can be able to hear.
We even have a chair for you.
And a computer.
Thank you.
All right. So the policy that drives this hasn't been revised since 2014. It's policy EEA, which we're going to talk about later today. And EEA pretty much says that it takes kids home. Is there consistency in the after-school programs? Like, is it like all 5 days a week? There isn't.
That's why I don't know how some of these ladies figure out, a particular day. In Nottingham, the lady has a chart, this child goes to grandma's on this call this day, they go to this program these 2 days, and the other 2 days they might go home or they go someplace else, or they're a car rider.
Right.
So, and a lot of the kids, even like for that school program, let's say, they might do a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Thursday, and the other days they go home or they have some other activity. So it's hard to track. You might have more room on this day, but you don't have it the next day. And when sports are not on a rainy day when everybody's going home, you've got some of these buses have up to 14, 15, 16 kids that do sports. So their numbers don't look bad in the afternoon right now, but they will when they all get on to go home because there's no activities.
What bus, what is the bus percentage in George B. Way?
remember, that's the high school bus.
No, I'm sorry, what color is it?
They call it yellow. It's not on here
It's not
because
on.
we don't,
Okay.
because
You don't
they're
have-
completely separate.
Okay.
Right, yeah, they don't have any root kids on. They just take two groups over and then they go on to meet the high school, yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, looking at the AM runs, at least for the dates you provided, we're okay. I mean, at 77 is our max capacity, assuming 3 to the seat. That's uncomfortably tight, I would say.
Oh, yeah, because the big kids are adult size. They are 2 to a seat, not
Okay.
not 3.
So a comfortable average number, what would you say that is?
60, 65
60-ish?
maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
60, 65.
Yep, depending on the ratio of the kids. Some have a bumper crop of younger kids, so they fill 2/3 of the bus, and they just have a smaller amount of middle schoolers.
Okay.
Blue buses like that, I think, off the top of my head.
So in terms of there's a couple of spots where the drop-offs became pressure points for us because the buses that stop there are full.
Those are on the fuller side, yes.
Okay, we have some buses that are not as full.
Right.
Do any of those buses go by those spots?
I don't think they go down that far.
I don't.
I'm trying to think of.
I know that there are two
It doesn't
stations.
go down. Not Julie.
Purple bus turns like cold
Right.
before
Right.
sunshine.
So they don't go that far.
You're before cold, right? The orange bus. Right, but she's green bus. Green and orange are full. Purple, I feel like would go past you because she turns right onto Cobra.
That's pretty much
Pink
it.
and red are in the opposite.
Opposite direction.
And the other buses that go past there.
White and blue are fairly full
They're
as well.
full.
Yeah.
So there's kind of two aspects to this that we're looking at, right? Obviously, student population grows, demand on the buses grows. Years ago, we had 8 buses with a smaller population. We've had 7 for 3 years now, I think. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think so.
3-ish years. So obviously, we've had some changes there. We look at the ridership counts a couple times a year, obviously, to try to see where we are away. The other thing that is a little bit obvious this year, and it's another agenda item, is the after-school program and their capacity and their ability to take more kids. Because we have ample capacity when Parks and Rec is running at its full capacity. That takes a pretty significant load off of the buses in general, right? And so I think that's part of this figuring out like the correct solution to all this is what's going on with that scenario as well.
Yeah, there's a trickle-down effect here. So I know that one of these locations has had kids going to it for quite a while. And that because Parks and Rec didn't have the space, a lot of kids got pushed onto another new location, and then A
You're gonna
implied
shuffle
B.
all over town.
Right. So the question is, do you want to talk to, you said you had something to add in regards to?
I thought that I had heard, someone had called and said that there's a bus that goes by one of the stables every day, and that they could just stop. That would solve the problem, but I don't know enough about the routes to know which bus that was.
And I think only purple that isn't full would go that far. She turns on
Purple looks
full.
like it has room. How many kids are we talking about with these two locations? And then once we start, if we go down this route,
Precedent.
Then you start opening up the doors.
it can go anywhere. We can go anywhere.
Right. It's yeah, it's not a great. It's not great either way because then you open the door and then, like I said, where do you draw the line? Because then if it opens up in other places in town, you've now set the precedent that they can go to any other place. And how do you put a limit on it? Or how do you decide who can and who can't?
And that there has to be a certain consistency to the busing, to the routes, to everything else. And it's all predicated on a certain level of consistency. Because if not, we've lost how many hours in the last, since the start of school. The value of the hours we've lost is probably staggering. need to, the resolution is to get a level of consistency back, to try to help ease it all.
Right, except the other side of it is that we've had a off-policy habit for years at this point of dropping kids off. There's been a precedent set by the school for a number of years of allowing kids to not follow the policy and go to other places. So,
I think there is a provision.
students traveling to other, the resident space available basis, only on established routes, on written notice of parent.
So that's what the following is at.
Yeah.
Right? But it has to fit, it has to fit in the established routes. We can't be rerouting buses to make things work, to facilitate all these offshoots all over the place. It's just not feasible.
Would we be rerouting a bus if we had one of these buses that drives by that is relatively empty, stop and let kids off there?
That one bus, purple, would be the only one. It doesn't go by both places.
But would that be called rerouting? Is that your question?
Yeah. Or is it just adding?
It's not a stop on its route. It doesn't make any stops in that section, so yes. I guess if you look at it that way, because that is broken up between green and orange.
Right.
Green stops below Cole Road into Raymond Town Line. And Cotton Road goes down all the way into Candia and comes back out. The orange one goes down to Cole, just travels Cole to get to Ridge and goes out to
Ridge
Haynes and Mount Delight and all that.
and up and down that road.
Yes.
Are we, so another question, and this more pertains to busing, are we, I know we're also having a bit of a traffic issue in the mornings here. Are
Yeah.
we-
Yeah, I've heard, yeah, I mean, these guys are like, I can't get in, I can't get out, and
The buses are bigger than anything else out there.
they still have to
Girls are more
mind.
recognizable than people complain about us,
Ah,
aren't they?
They're all the same. But are we having a traffic issue because people aren't utilizing buses because they feel like they're crowded or they feel like they're not available to them? And if we,
I don't know, I'm just looking at those morning numbers.
The numbers are
Seem
pretty
like they're
good.
well utilized.
right, so
So I have a question based, we see 90 cars every morning. If nobody put their kids in a car and drove them here, would we have enough room on our buses? Not even close?
No, not depending on where they are either, because you don't know what areas they're coming from. Some are already, full as they are.
So we technically don't provide enough service. Nobody.
I think that, but kids that ride want to ride, parents have them on, but some always drive. You have that in every town.
Yeah.
Some that are always going to
But-
drive.
But is there kids that are being driven that could utilize a bus or would utilize a bus?
No,
How would you know?
you could, other than taking a survey, I guess. I
Which
don't.
we've done years ago. I think there was a survey. Do you remember, Brian?
Yeah, we did do a survey, but it was,
It's like 5 years ago.
yeah,
Stood out there and asked the cars.
yeah, I think we actually handed something out, like saying, go on to this Google, it was a Google survey form.
Right.
But we didn't get an accurate response from that.
Right.
People really want to fill this out right now. That's it.
I don't see that. I mean, I know it's a traffic issue. Been in that traffic issue many years myself. But
So you're not utilizing the bus for your kids?
No.
A lot.
I mean,
I
very,
enjoy
very
football.
rarely, but I mean,
And
No.
so
we've made that choice.
we have a lot. Yes, we have a lot of demand on transportation. The board has the discretion to change routes. We left that when we approved the routes this in August. So if there is a bus that goes by, is it a major hindrance to us? Is it working within the policy and not setting a precedent?
It's also, are we working with the contract we have? That's inside the equation. We have a policy, but we also have
We have a contract.
we have an active contract with
Right.
Dale and SDA.
Either way.
So I mean, the second part of that question is how we operate.
I think that's actually the more important question, because that's the limiting factor.
Is are we asking for stuff outside of our contract?
But I would also say, before we make any routing decisions, we might want to consider potential impacts, positive impacts of what could happen with the after-school program, because that could take a lot of ridership off. It may give us other options to work.
Well, that's assuming that there's going to be a bunch of parents who say, I no longer want to go to stable, whatever it is, and I want to go to after school.
I'm just
Right.
thinking, if we, for example, have the after-school program here as proposed, then that, I know that bus that used to go to George B. White, then go to high school,
A
would
student,
be necessary, which frees up a resource that can shift. So I'm just saying we should keep that in mind before we make a decision about it.
How many kids were impacted by this change? By the limiting? Do you know, Kristen? Or-
It could have been up to 18, would you say? I don't ride my bus. Yeah, I mean, there's
they only can take
probably
90 now, right?
6 to 10.
For me, because I would try to not overwhelm. It was only ever 4 kids. I would have 6 on the bus, but one is my daughter and the other one lives across the street.
And so then
So they were on the route anyway. I always try to keep it under that because I didn't want to, when I talked to the bus company, they said as long as we're not full. And then they had to give the note to the school.
And then the other one was the same, and then it had students going to individual homes, home care situations. So I could safely say probably 15 to 18 kids are affected by this.
And I think up to 10 we're gonna go to the other place, so we don't go by that. That has space, if that's still, what you're considering.
There were going to be 10 in additional to what Kristen
It was
said.
up to 10 that we're asking.
So we're now talking 28 kids?
10, 16, maybe, I'd probably maybe 20 or so, 20 or so
Total.
kids, I'd say.
And of those 20, I guess of those 20 kids, are those 20 kids looking at that option because Parks and Rec is at capacity and they're not utilizing Parks and Rec? I mean, is that ridership that would naturally transition back to Parks and Rec?
That I can't say for sure.
Or I mean, I don't know if they were formerly Parks and Rec kids, or we know that from previous years, they were Parks and Rec kids. So this is just a stopgap measure because Parks and Rec was full. And if Parks and Rec gets their capacity back up, is that
I
probably
think the students that were going to Wolf Creek were students that had been going for a couple of years at this point. And then the other stable became available to fill the need for kids not being able to go to the after school club.
So I guess what I'm wondering is if this kind of solves itself with Parks and Rec.
I think for a majority it does, but there were people that will probably have made commitments for a certain amount of time. I don't think you'll see 100% reversal. You might see
No, but you can see enough of a
80%.
reversal to draw enough of that to allow the current policy, the current methodology.
What is the bus that stops there? Is it, which one is it?
It's green stops.
Green. I mean, there's
Green would be the
67
other one.
kids.
Green would be the one for the sunshine.
The sunshine.
And
Does not go by.
so there's about 60 kids average in the afternoon with 16 extra kids playing sports who's not on the bus or
She had a Friday afternoon where she had 77 on.
which is max.
Max, and uncomfortable because your big kids
that
don't.
bus is out of the question one way or the other.
But, I mean, in theory, that 76 on in the afternoon, that's more than she would have brought in, the bus would have brought in at any given day.
Right.
So is that because of trying to shift more over there, or is that because kids get dropped off in the morning, you take the bus in
Some
the
may,
afternoon?
yeah, some
or-
may get dropped off in the morning, take the bus in the afternoon.
Another way of looking at this might be looking at the morning numbers. And at the morning numbers, which are separate from this afternoon question, you've got the pink bus, which has less than half of the ridership of some of those.
That's the bus to be on, if you're gonna be on the bus.
But they cover a lot, but see, some of your low numbers are not necessarily a shorter route. They cover a lot of ground. Pink does Mountain Road, Nottingham Road, Kate, and then Coffee Down.
That's a high mileage bus.
It's a lot of miles but you have those in every town. You cover a great area, but you don't pick up a lot of families, but you have to cover it. Purple covers, goes Meeting House, Church, Old Center, Griffin, Cole, Candia. A lot of ground, but low number.
So were there kids who were asked to no longer, or were told they could no longer go to an after-school care, even though there was room on the bus for them to take?
For babysitters or that type of thing?
Yeah, just like-
No. I mean, but a lot of them are set up that way. They've been for years, so it's not something new. I think a few families went to a new sitter, but we're talking one or two. And your numbers do flex in the afternoon. You don't every day have every kid on the bus. Some days you have a great amount of space, but how do you track that for?
So, you guys deal with this every day. What's your input on how to?
It's settled down a little bit.
Okay.
I think the message got out to the community that we're working on a solution. So people have found alternative transportation or situations or.
Right.
I haven't been getting as many phone calls about it. Candy, can you say that you've been getting as many phone calls?
That seems, you had said a solution was reviewed or an
Yeah.
effort to resolve.
So is that? Do you think that effort implies this board doing something to address it?
Yes.
Okay. So if we have a bus that drives by that has space, adding one stop, is that a major imposition on the bus?
No, but you can't cover both of the places that people want to go.
They don't. They're geographic. Can we talk about like geographically where these two? So I know, I think I know where Kelly's is.
Next to the old hardware store.
Okay. Where's the other one?
Down the street is Lucy's.
Okay.
Make
So
sense?
the kids would have to cross the road to go to one, right?
Or
No,
we'd
we
have to go
don't.
a mile down the road.
They have to walk from, because we
Oh,
don't
it's
go that
after
far.
Cole Road
We
because it
don't-
turns on.
We don't go past it. Right.
The purple bus is the one that turns on up and
Onto Cole, yeah.
So that's your later bus.
And there's nothing that goes by.
Oh, you've got white, blue, green, orange that go by, but those are your highest numbers.
Capacity.
So
And nothing can be shifted from those fuller buses to purple
Because
easily.
then you're rerouting everything, right?
Yeah,
Not just
yeah.
making a stop here, now you're throwing it all in the air.
But if we rerouted things based on the morning numbers and took the pink route and split Cape Road onto the red route or whatever, made some sort of tweak like that, we'd be changing it because of the morning numbers, not because of the afternoon numbers.
And the morning numbers appear to be okay.
Right, but what I'm saying is that it would fit within our policy if we were to make that change according to the morning numbers. We wouldn't be accommodating. If we wanted to overhaul things, I don't know, if we don't want to do it, it's a lot of work, but we could do it to address the morning numbers. It could also address the afternoon numbers potentially. But it's just probably not worth overhauling.
Deal?
So
Even that doesn't work. I was gonna say the only thing is 2 after-school buses, or the 1 after-school bus.
that's tied to high school though, they barely make the high school
That's gotta
connection.
They're not, they don't go down that far.
Right, no, there's time, I'm thinking, but there isn't time.
She swings right into the George B. White and then shoots right
track and-
down, right.
Head down.
So leaving the policy as is, the it's Ron's old place, right?
Yes.
Ron's old place, what's the name of it?
Sunshine?
Sunshine Stables has, that's the pressure point, that one is the pressure point. There seems to be.
Today's pressure point.
Right,
Yeah, because you open up the potential for other places to open up.
go ahead.
That is already an established stop though, right?
Yeah, that one is.
So it wouldn't be against policy, it says unestablished stops on a space available basis, so the space is the issue, not the policy, I think.
Correct.
Problem is,
But what we did is we
Yeah,
shut down
sure.
everything.
Right.
Just the horse stables. So when do we get, we comment, do we have this?
This is now. Yep, does the board want to hear from the audience?
I think comments, didn't mean your comments, I don't want to get into
The negative, appear to be helping the school. The one negative comment was how messages to the
Make a motion.
kids before the parents.
I move to open up the meeting to community comments.
second.
New discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, community members, you are invited to join the conversation. I will lead the conversation. Please raise your hand if you have comments. Yes.
I believe I emailed over to the school, Northampton, New Hampshire, had a similar problem. And I believe they now have kind of like, not a computer, they have an app or something that they're using that has helped the situation out.
As far as tracking,
Yes, as far as tracking and helping with the buses.
It would require labor on behalf of the school to manage that.
Right, that's true. But from what, and again, I'm not in the school, I don't, from what I've heard from people that work in the school, it was very simple and it wasn't any more taxing what the ladies were already doing in the office. I don't know, I'm not doing the work, I'm just going off of what they have.
If I could ask Candy, if you don't mind if I ask you a question. In regards to kids that have gone to different locations, like the stables in the past, how do the people let you know and how do you track that?
Okay, we have several ways that parents let us know. We have the printout from the after school program. We had notes from parents who said that their students on Wednesday would be dropped off for the year at a specific spot. So we use those notes for the year, and then we get daily notes via phone calls, emails, telling us about changes.
do you track it just, is there like a spreadsheet you guys use to track it, or is it just verbal at this point? You keep track of it on paper and let kids know?
We keep track of it on paper, and then the students take the paper, like mom says, John's going to Gary's house on the red bus, and the student comes down, and he takes that sheet and gives it to the bus driver.
So the bus drivers are marshalling the school, or the final marshal of the school. Okay.
You had a question?
Yeah, so one, I think that there's a lack of a process here, and would help the community try to figure out how to solve the process. We have time to process you're missing here. We don't have data to make correct decisions, accurate decisions, to reroute the buses as needed, and come up with. So I think, and I work in IT, so whether it be an application, spreadsheets are done in 90s, but whatever we need to do, technology can help us. I'd be willing to be part of the community to help look at different applications and technology to help solve this. Not just the app itself, but the technology, the process behind that. See if we can get something that can give us data points to make more intelligent and proactive decisions instead of reactive. And Candy shouldn't be working off of notes and stuff like that. There should be a way for parents to say, can solve this. The other thing I'd like to add to that is, outside of the processing technology for delivering that, it sounds like you guys are trying to solve this right now every 2 weeks. I don't know, again, if you have data points hearing this discussion, right? You guys are asking questions, but you have all the information. Is there a committee, a focus group that can work during the 2 weeks prior to the next meeting that can deliver you possible recommendations and like take some of this off of you guys, put it on some other people to say, hey guys, we and again, this people should be able to direct some of the bus drivers themselves and what it's focus group. What can we do to solve this? And then present you guys with 2 or 3 viable solutions. Because 2 weeks has gone by, it doesn't sound gotten any further from a needs case solving this for those who are impacted. It's going to be on the 2 weeks, let's at least get some people involved in public meetings.
Right. Well, right now we have a policy that doesn't allow for an entire rewrite, so we have to deal with policy first in regards to what approach the school board's going to take. And then, yes, there are a lot of challenges, and we've actually started looking at using GIS systems and analytics to look at routes this year. There wasn't enough time to do a full process. The school board is 4 people right now. It's usually 5. And we have a bunch of different committees, so there's not a ton of time for us. So anytime anybody wants to come and help, we're always happy to have help. But it would have to be a decision of the board that they wanted to go in that direction.
Fair enough, that's what I'm just throwing that out there. It seems like probably well received.
Right.
And I got one.
Patty?
Could we have people announce their name and address for the record, please,
Right.
when they speak?
Could you say your name for the record?
Yes, Stefan Galapagos, 56, Millville.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Sloan, 16 Swan. It kind of occurred to me when you guys talked about the yellow bus and some of these kids might be already on these buses that just don't stop there. So it's something to look at too, because I know my daughter goes right by, she's on the yellow bus. The yellow orange, yeah, sorry. So, that's another thing to look at too, because they're already on the bus and just stop there.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts as soon as you open this up, and I think that's what you're seeing a reticence from the board is as soon as we start opening it up.
Pandora's box.
It implies 16 different things. This is going to impact this route. This is going to impact this route. This kid doesn't. There's a lot of moving parts. So.
If you're not lucky enough to be on that bus, you get to go there.
Right.
And we need
The other poor kids.
we need consistency in routing and consistency in scheduling and everything else, because it's all predicated on a certain level of consistency, because that's how we plan for, budget for, and forecast out, obviously, going forward. When we publish the routes, they're published based, pickup times are published based upon what anticipated stops are and everything else, and that's all predicated on a certain level of consistency, and I think that's the other thing whatever our solution is, it needs to be a consistent solution, because it can't be a variable, you can't have a ton of variable items, it just creates chaos.
You're representing daily transportation.
Dale transportation.
You have a process.
You got to run all questions through me.
Okay. No reason that I'm asking is I would think that a transportation company would see this from a lot of different areas and would be interested in having a processing and software technology to help address this situation. Go to the source of where this is at, the scheduling. So I just wasn't sure if that's something we're looking at, if that's something we have or have in your radar.
Do you want to address that, or?
Well, basically, we don't use a technology program to program routes, but that's something that you're looking at into mapping.
Right.
We have to base what we know on routes based on what we have for kids when we start the school year.
Some schools are finding out.
So Nottingham, for example, had 150 changes in schedules the first week of school. If kids going to different places, and then they had buses that were too full and couldn't take the kids. So
So I hear what you're saying, and our contract does not require Dale to do that. So it's at their discretion whether or not they used any kind of system.
I wasn't saying we had basically trying to force them, I'm just asking those questions.
Right. Yeah, our contract does not specify that they have to use any type of software or analytic tool. What happens is we provide them with the routes at the beginning of the year, which the school board approved, and they work off of that. That's what the contract states.
And so that just pushes it back on us. That's okay, I just wasn't sure. Start thinking on the other transportation entities, and working software process. That equals a focal point, the most benefit is, they want to socialize and consume that.
I think Brad had a question.
Yeah, Brad Soller, 48 Birch Road. So I think considering the way people deal with after school care for their kids, very different than just 5 years ago, 10 years ago with the dynamics of families. So you're always going to have this inconsistency, I feel like, right? This is a volume problem. So what happens if 20 kids get on the bus tomorrow morning for whatever reason, 20 more kids than did today? How do you handle that? It's a volume problem, not a consistency problem. So two things, do you do a survey of both, not only where they get picked up in the morning, but also where they're looking to be dropped off? I mean, that would help with a consistency thing at least. Like if you get picked up at your home and you get dropped off at grandma's house, you get dropped off at some sitter's house, that'd be valuable information to know. And then, I don't think I heard it in the policy, I read the policy, there's no trigger, right, on volume of kids that says, okay, if we get 90% of volume or capacity, then it can trigger another bus automatically with the discretion of the school board.
So, I mean, the first side of that is it's a budgetary standpoint, right? We budget for a certain number of buses, and we contract for a certain number of buses.
Right.
So, we can't, there's no trigger to add a bus.
Could there be?
It's, you'd have to budget for it, right, in advance, and then have a past budget for another bus to be there. But you'd also have to be able to locate a bus and a driver and staff and everything else, which is the second part of the equation. And that's been at least last year, I know you didn't have a line of drivers waiting to go to work. I don't know if that changed or not, but
no, we're lucky here, but every other district is understaffed.
So that's the second side of the equation.
I get that's the problem. It's not really your problem. It's their problem. I mean, which trickles down to your problem.
Right.
But what if, like, for the next 2 weeks, for whatever, 20 more kids want to get on the bus? And you said, I'm hearing that there's a bunch of buses that are close to full in the morning, but a bunch of buses that aren't. What if there's a bunch of kids that just all of a sudden want to start taking the bus? What's the
We're legally obligated to provide transportation to elementary school kids from their home to the school.
Right.
We are not legally obligated to take them to anywhere but their home.
Oh yeah, I understand that, but you could have that problem.
But that is a different problem.
Yeah.
It's
a different conversation.
Yeah, it would be a different conversation. It would. The principal and vice principal might have more white hair.
But if you're going to apply a policy to two very small subsets of kids, how come we're not applying it to every kid that doesn't go to their home?
Is it being applied to every kid that doesn't go to their home?
Not that that's the solution. It's not the solution.
Right.
But
we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah,
We don't know who's going
I'm
to
talking to
daycare.
Kelly
We
a
don't
couple,
know.
sorry.
Yeah, we don't know who goes to daycare. We don't know if a kid's getting stuck 3 homes before because they're watching that kid that day. It's almost impossible to know that unless you're riding the bus every single day and you're marking off where they're supposed to get off or who's on that bus.
Right.
That's not a feasible thing to do.
And from what Kelly said, 1 or 2 kids is one thing, but the 8, 9, 10 kids, that affects it very differently.
Depending on the bus.
Right.
Obviously, if it was, you're not going to have 20 extra kids go in the morning, but we problem solve as we go along. Obviously, that would be something that we would come to you and say, hey, we need to adjust. And to get them there that morning, you bet they'd jump in and help each other wherever they had to do it if it happened. But it's not. That's not
That's not a good solution.
It's not either. either, but, you know. But doesn't seem to be where our big issue is. It's after school and people needing to go where they need to go to get taken care of, and it's just hard to decide because you have to make a decision of how, you know, Purple Bus has room, but it can't take both. And what if another group opens up another place and we have to, that bus is full on the route? So it's not great, it's not great either way.
So, because we don't spend a lot of time looking at these numbers, you guys live with this. We don't spend time looking at these numbers until you bring us a report. Logistically, is there a solution to this you can think of at this point? Is this something we can solve with what we have now, or is this something that does require an entire reworking, if it were to be addressed, an entire reworking of the routes?
In order to help everybody that's asking to be helped, you would have to do some rerouting to move stops and such in order to open up the space that you may need.
I think part of this conversation needs to be that after we
Talk to Parks and Rec.
talk to Parks and Rec, and I think the reality of it is the solution potentially lies within the policy at the moment, not necessarily. It's how we decide to determine if the policy needs to be either amended or left as it stands. But I think a big part of this is talking to Parks and Rec, and hopefully.
Next on the agenda. So what's the wish of the board? You guys want to table this and come back to it, or
I would table to the chapter.
Parks and Rec? Okay. Last comment before I close.
Kelly Reardon, 35B Raymond Road. Just a quick thought. How it reads in the book to me is if the bus isn't full, an extra child can take the bus. Could we go back to that for now? And if the bus isn't full, an extra child can take the bus, and if it is, then they can't?
They haven't deviated.
That seems like the policy that is.
That's the policy, right?
Right?
That was cut off.
That was all shut down because my bus wasn't completely full for the kids that we had going on.
We asked it at the last meeting, I guess technically, but the policy as it reads allows that.
The only problem you run into is some things they did run into is they go to get on the bus that day and there's not a space, and then poor kid doesn't have a way to get there and we have to call mom. I mean, is it gonna happen every day? No, but we wanna help however we can.
I know, I totally understand. So what color, do you know what color bus it is that comes by?
Orange bus.
Orange does that stop.
And it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday tends to be the days that I know I have extra kids on it. It tends to be 3 kids, sometimes 4.
I mean, there was a precedent set, and there's room within the policy to allow it. So I don't have any problem with it.
For all routes?
That's what the policy reads, right? Yep. I mean
The policy stands until we amend it
Right.
a couple of times anyway. So we're working on a solution that policy is a policy.
So what was it, the blue bus is the one that goes by Sunshine?
Blue is South Road.
No, green.
And green is
And green is totally full. So, I mean, unfortunately, that one, there's no room for extra kids. There doesn't have to be a motion of the board because the policy is what the policy is. So it's the discretion of you guys in managing the bus loads. That's your job.
Administration.
Right? Right?
It becomes a problem, it becomes a school problem if the bus says, there's 3 of you, like Kelly said, that can't get on the bus because we're full today, then you have 3 kids here, and we have to figure out what to do with those kids.
So,
And at that point, then we're calling them to say, hey, we need to turn around the white bus for the blue bus. Now
They can't go where they were
we can't
gonna
go,
go.
and then we're sitting on a one call now. That's
Is there,
saying that your child's delayed.
Yes, Deb?
Just a question for Kelly. She says she's had these kids coming for a couple of years. In the couple of years the kids have been coming, has there ever been that situation that kids have been told there's no room and they can't go?
Never.
We've never had a population like we have now.
Just asking.
You know, I hear you, but we're
And I do have a security
30
note with my
kids higher than
parents
the
that
rest.
if there was to ever be a problem, just make sure I am able to pick them up because I live a mile up the road.
Can I say something for clarification?
yes.
Just for clarification, if a family's having a birthday party and they call, we say that, and they want their children to take the bus, we ask that they call Dale Transportation to see if there's room for an additional 4, 5, 6 students. So parents know ahead of time. We've never I'm dating myself, the 20 years I've been here, come to this issue where there hasn't been room for that. Kids step on the bus and they are told that they can't get on. It's just because of this one situation.
Okay.
I think
Just
we
for your
should talk
information.
Parks and Rec.
Okay. So I mean, the policy hasn't changed. So
Other than what we passed down.
So it's-
Mandate 2 weeks ago.
right. We didn't vote on it. It was just
We
a
didn't change
conversation.
the policy, but we did give a fairly clear direction to say, slice it, dice it, call it Dunkin' Donuts.
So
Are we doing that now?
Run down to the doctor.
what's the wish of the board? I mean, we talked about
Follow the policy.
we have an existing policy. If you guys have space, it's in your discretion.
I think the board owes Dale and the administration apology. We just created a whole bunch of work.
Sorry about that. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Nate?
One question on that policy. Going back to data points and decisions. How do you decide, I mean, is the green bus, using as an example, is it full in the morning and full in the afternoon at the same time? Is it just these folks going to the stables that are putting up and not going directly home? I just want to be cautious, kind of standing behind that policy that all families and their children are being treated fairly under that policy. Not just the large numbers, because that I'm not trying to be negative, but, and I'll save my comments like that for later on, but I just want to caution you guys, if you do something that is fair across the board, you are opening up the school or the town for possible occasions. So, again, I'm going back, the problem here is we have a lot of students, a lot more students we go that we haven't accommodated for. We don't have a process to treat everyone fairly. In the absence of those, the policy sets you guys up for negative repercussions.
Right. The routes do need to be looked at. The policy right now is if there are extra seats on the bus, then it's kids can go places. If there are not extra seats on the bus,
No, I understand.
and
I mean,
Regardless of destination. So that's, there's no designation in the policy that says only these two things, which I think is your point.
I just
So
want to make sure all, I mean, at this
It's-
point, everybody.
yep, any
all
bus
green
on
buses are
any route.
notified of the measures. If that wasn't done across the board, then the town resources not being shared equally amongst the community.
all right, we're going to move on to Parks and Recreation.
Where's the crosswalk?
In the hall.
Oh, in the hall. I don't think so.
All right, let's Parks and Recreation. Kelly, we're good.
thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. Hello. All right. So you sent us something this afternoon, right?
Yeah, about a couple hours ago. I'm not sure who's had a chance to look at it yet. Does everybody have a copy?
No, they made us copies. All right, pitch away.
Okay, so first of all, Nick Lawrence, Parks and Recreation Director, Town of Deerfield. So the proposal as written on top is Deerfield Community School allows the Deerfield Parks and Recreation Department to utilize DCS cafeteria exclusively to house an after-school clubhouse satellite location on each day that school is in session at no cost to DPR. That's the general proposal. So I have this proposal. It's broken down into benefits, expectations for all parties, which is Parks and Rec, the school itself, and parents at pickup. We've also got a plan in place, or a rough draft of what a regular day will look like if we house a location here. And there's some other notes as well. I don't know if you guys want me to run through each one, paraphrase them. I can approach it either way. Give you a chance to read it.
Yeah, just a couple minutes.
Sure.
So when you say exclusively, does that mean?
Yeah, the idea would be that we would be the only program in the cafeteria, just so that we don't have to kind of manage around other programs that might be going on.
What times? What times would you? That's on the second page. Sorry, I haven't got there.
2:30 to 6. When we would be 2:30 to 6. Can I toss a couple questions out there?
Yep.
So, thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
This is what we kind of needed to see.
Sure.
So you have in your first page, you talk about the capacities now. So you've heard back from the fire marshal?
We did as of today.
Okay.
We did as of today.
So that 150, 160 is the official,
It's officially 160.
blessed by the Pope and all that good stuff.
That's it. That's the maximum, which is it's still tight.
Right.
So, but we
I
would
could
we
see
would
that
never
being,
go.
I could see that being cozy in there.
Yeah, we would never go over 160 at the building.
But where are you running right now? Are you still, what's your average numbers today or currently?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, if you get the official number, Deb must have the official number.
We're still running in the high 60s.
In the high 60s.
Yeah.
Okay.
So about a little less than a third capacity. Or a
I'd
little
say
more.
half, because 120 is probably more.
120 is realistic.
Yeah, that's
120 is very realistic.
Is a
That's
comfortable
kind of the
number.
number that we stop
Excuse
at.
me.
And is that where you were running in previous years, was somewhere in that vicinity?
Daily is 90 to 100 on a high day, right? That's what we have.
Okay.
It's listed here.
So knowing that you have room currently to house more kids than you currently are. So are you looking to up your capacity to take kids off the wait list or the need list, or what term you use? But
So since we've got the news from the fire chief, it's more secondary now. It's not a necessity to get the extra space to house everybody in the program, just based on the 160. I mean, if we as Deb just said, we've never run more than 100 kids in a day on average on a high day. So we could certainly take all the kids there, but if you look in the community benefits section, I mean, there's a bunch of different benefits to it. So we're enhancing the program, essentially. So it's secondary for space now.
Okay.
We know that with the fire chief. Initially, we did fear that we might have a much smaller number per room per the entire area. So that's why we wanted to look ahead, be proactive, and try to obtain another space. But now we still see some other benefits of it if the proposal is to be accepted.
When we start talking about staffing, because you had your ratios listed here, that you were 15 to 1 as your target.
Yes.
So I know staffing's been a bit of a challenge for you guys so far this year.
Yes.
Where do you currently stand on that? Do you have enough staff to be able to do this? And then if you do split locations, for lack of a better term, what's your anticipated, what are you going to be housing at George B. White versus what you were intending to be housing here, and how would that shake up?
So I think to start, once we do have the staffing, and I put in an anticipated date of November 1st for this because we have offered 3 different people positions. So assuming that we hire a couple more between now and the end of November, we could be able to step right in and start housing it then. So with that said, I think that we don't want to go above around the 30 threshold here for the time being while we're just trying things out. But if staff allows, I mean, we'd be more than happy to take on more kids as well. We're also talking about the 4th through 6th grade for the time being, which is our numbers, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, are around in the 30s.
32 if you took all the grades that you currently have registered in 4 to 6 and took the ones off the wait list. And that's where that 15 to 1 ratio is. It's much less, obviously, for the younger grades. The 1 to 15 would be for what would be housed here at the school.
So for simplicity, we chose the 4th through 6th grade.
So if this becomes a tool for us to help bolster our after-school programs, the enrichment program, is Parks and Rec willing to waive part of the fees for those families that want to come use Parks and Rec after the enrichment program, so that they're not paying for a regular day of Parks and Rec when they're already paying for an enrichment program, whatever that fee might be, because it varies from program to program.
And I would be okay with that if they're already currently registered in the after-school program, or are you talking about kids that aren't in the after-school program?
Well, it could be twofold. I mean, it could be kids that are currently registered that then opt to use that, and it could be it could be grade levels outside, obviously, what you guys are discussing. So there's that question, but then it may enable kids to participate in the enrichment programs that we have, but they would need to. It's that hour or so after the enrichment programs. It seems to be where I think a lot of families get tied up, just in a logistics standpoint. So then the question is would you be able to take those kids?
I mean, everything's a numbers game, and depending on what we currently have, and how many kids are coming to us, so it could be a big number anyway, but I mean, we're willing to work with any solutions to help all of the families. So yeah, we'll be able to do that.
Have you, did you guys work on this with the administration, or is this is your proposal, or have you talked with the, excuse me, have you talked with the administration about this at all yet?
This was basically finalized today, so they haven't had a chance to see the final thing.
Everybody saw it together, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Nick did send it yesterday.
I sent, yeah, it was a
Prior
prior
draft, though, we did add and tweak some things. So this is probably the first time you guys are all seeing this.
So I know in an effort to do this, we would be moving existing programs out of the CAF when these slots to begin with. Do you guys know off the top of your heads what programs we'd have to shuffle? I know, I think cheerleading was one of the ones that may occur on that.
Yeah, cheerleading, Cindy actually, in our last presentation, kind of overlooked cheerleading, because they practice in the gym, but when there's games and things of that nature, they can't practice in there. So they practice in the gym. They practice in the cafeteria twice a week. And then the only thing that, and then besides Girl Scouts.
Right. Girl Scouts uses Girl Scouts, I think the Cub Scouts.
Yeah. Different nights.
Where would the enrichment program go? Because right now it uses the cafeteria.
Right. We would have to
move that somewhere.
Move to somewhere else. Yeah. We would have to.
So is the library empty most days after school? I mean, could the enrichment programs be done?
It's 3 days a week. It's booked up. Monday, Wednesday, Thursdays.
For staff meetings?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's the biggest struggle we're going to have is trying to juggle existing programs around.
So the problem comes more in the winter when obviously when the gym is used more. Right. Basketball season, it's just such a large volume of students, and the season is just long. I mean, you're looking at November till March-ish, and then you have the big event with the Hoops Classic, yeah, it's a big one too. So.
In regards to kids attending support school events like sports, band, concerts, would you guys have additional staffing that would walk kids around to those events, or how would you would? Okay.
You would know in advance games and stuff going on, so we staff it.
Okay.
much additional labor would it be on our part, the school's part, to clean, reorganize before an evening event?
I think in here it says that they would be in charge of all cleaning.
Except we're in charge of mopping.
And that was just because we weren't sure if we would have access to a mop room, a mop bucket, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And we'll definitely sweep, trash, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the cafeteria is cleaned every day, right? 1:30ish. And, you know, it's I'm not sure the name of the machine, but there's an actual machine that cleans the floors.
It's called Gizmo.
Sample in the G.
It looks like a mini sample. A push sample.
Walk behind.
So does the after-school program pay anything to the town for the use of space over at the George B. White? Do you guys pay towards janitorial fees there? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have to cover all our own maintenance costs.
Okay.
We buy our own cleaning supplies. There's no cost to the town for anything that we do within those rooms.
But this is a good proposal. I think we need to have conversations with the administration in regards to like how this would work logistically, and also with the athletic director who manages all of the space. So I would say we readdress this at our next meeting. Give them a couple of weeks to look at it.
Yeah.
You guys are thinking a November start, right?
I mean, you know, we just thought we'd have a date there. I'd
Okay.
also like to know if you have a maximum of kids that you would put on us too. That would be helpful for us to know.
No.
I think our match number could be 555, right?
560.
Right?
Are we about 555?
Solve the busing problem.
We fix everything all at once. It's all in one day.
It there's an enrollment report.
Okay, good. Yeah, cool. I mean, this is definitely something we can the administration can digest, and it's going to take a little bit of logistics, but I'd say we would talk about this at our next meeting.
Yeah. I want the administration to tell us if they can make it fit. I guess is basically what my bigger concern is.
Fair enough.
Okay.
So yeah.
Any questions for Deb or Nick while they're here?
The wait list, as far as trying to get that up, when do you think you can be able to start taking names off of it?
10 kids in this week.
You did.
Do you have kids that are going to a stable that are not going to be going to?
I don't know what kids are going. I don't know them. I don't know.
Okay.
Honestly.
You just know you have 10 more?
10 more kids with them. But yeah, we're currently at 101 kids registered as of today.
Okay.
In the after school.
And have you seen, is there more,
Attendance?
yeah, I guess it's only been a couple of days now, but I mean, are you seeing the attendance starting to climb by those? Not yet? Okay.
I mean, yes and no. There's so many activities. There's soccer, you know,
It's too much going on.
there's a lot going on. You know, there's certain grades. You know, the older kids are busier in the afternoon right now. The littles are always going to be there. You know, they're consistently there.
I'm thrilled to hear that, as far as the staffing standpoint, you guys have started to find some candidates. That's good news for everybody. It's doing this really well.
And we're still looking. Anybody? Has anybody in mind?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Facility needs. Boy.
You wanna, there's nothing to go back to on the stuff.
It's the wish of the board. Well, we didn't table it. We said that policy is it stands. If you guys want to readdress it, I suggested tabling it. You actually have to table something.
We can get into it during the policy discussion like that. The policy is further down on the agenda. Okay.
Facility needs. Who's leading this one? Is this me? Anyone?
Brian?
Oh.
Would you like to talk to facility needs?
Oh, the maintenance. Okay, sorry.
All right. Brian and I sat with Mike today. We talked about, I basically we put down in numbers what kinds of things we've been talking about. We did have the facility assessment and the numbers that the people that you hired to do this, so we kind of used that as well. And these are just the things that Mike, his whole thing is, if you want paint and ceiling tiles and floor tiles, he can do that for you. If you want to know how to keep the school running, toilets and things coming in and things going out like they should, and hot water here and cold water there, and those are the things that aren't necessarily on here. So that we just kind of put down the things that he felt we could address pretty immediately. Do you want to go through each one?
I think so.
The stairwell treads, from all four of them, replacing
The landing and the steps.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so the top landing, middle landing, obviously at the bottom, but that's tile. And then the stairs.
He has a quote from Deck Tech for about $20,000. And then we talked over the summer too, when we were with Zach about the replacing the gang urinals and the gang toilets. And so that gang urinals, he figures there's about 8 of them, about $300 per. And then the gang toilets, he knew that there was 12, maybe a little bit more. And that was going to be $500, $600, including the flushometer.
Are these estimates with him doing the work, or are we coming in?
That is with him doing the work.
It's him doing the work. Okay, so the I guess the quick question is does he have time to start knocking this stuff off?
He doesn't. I mean, we got to talking about furniture, the things that he had to put aside to get things done that had to get done.
Right.
So if we hired somebody to do it, it'd be an additional cost, obviously.
Okay.
The front foyer carpet was one of the items listed here, about $5,000. And then the kitchen duct cleaning and a hinge kit, $500 plus a couple $100 for a hinge kit. I guess I don't know, he explains it much better than I will, and he was not able to come to the board meeting tonight, but would be glad to come to the next board meeting if you'd like to have him here. It was about $200 with including an installation cost. The exhaust hood under the dishwasher, I guess, it does not have one and needs to have one. That's $15,000. This summer he had the emergency well work done, bacteria testing, so that was paid out of contracted services to Aqua Specialties. And then he has an estimate from Roto-Rooter, or Mr. Rooter, sorry, to snake and clean the septic lines, which he says has to be done. And those are the things, right, that aren't listed here, but that he knows has to be done. Mr. Rooter would be a 2-hour minimum of $1,156, and each additional hour will be $481 to get that work done. He has an estimate from Lane Key to rekey all the exterior locks for $2,500, about $2,500. Extra lines, redoing the striping of all the yellow lines for $1,200. And then other things that he knows will need to be added into the budget yearly. We'll go through those if those are some things that I know that starting a contract with a lighting company to start changing out the lighting. In the report that we have here, they estimated to be about $280,000 to get that work done.
That number's not aware.
It's total or that's annual?
Total. That would be an LED conversion is what they do. Right. Specking, but I think that number's really high. Really high.
Yep.
And there is some grant money that you could potentially go after if you want.
Sure.
It's worth doing because it would save a tremendous amount of money, but that's, I think, a little bit longer.
That number came from this.
Yeah, no,
So,
but
yeah.
I think that project's a little bit longer term as far as taking your time to figure that one out.
While we're talking about the electricity, there was a community member who reached out to me who was involved with solar installations. Did he reach out to you? guy named Wes Gollum. Wes Gollum.
I don't believe.
He was curious as to get copies of the electric bill because there are, he said that there were solar installations that will install on schools and then use it as an offset against, he's been working in that field for a long time and he led a lot of efforts in town to create cooperatives around buying solar panels. So if he pings you, it might be something interesting to talk.
I see you would have that.
The Pembroke Academy did that.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, and like the bills.
Solar.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, the electric bills. Yeah.
Electric bills.
The solar. The issue of Pembroke was the grants are not available for the bigger projects anymore. You can only use the usage is capped, so you can't build up as much to offset the
Credit
cost.
or whatever
Yeah,
it is?
whatever it's called when there's excess that you can use later.
The net metering.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're looking at the list, right, a lot of this stuff is pretty small and quick and dirty and easy. Do we as a board just want to start greenlighting things and saying, get after it?
I think the only thing I wouldn't green light on here is $280,000 for LED.
No, that's definitely not greenlighted, but as far as, getting going on the stairwell treads, urinals and toilets, start getting after it.
There was a warrant article, town approved it, we go.
So, get honking on it.
Okay.
Start working through the list. Just make sure that however it's done, it's within the confines of our purchasing policy. So if the jobs are assigned and you go out to bid, just ensure that that gets done. Work through Amber, obviously, on that.
Hearing the 7 years.
We can do the public hearing afterwards.
Yeah.
So we
As long as you're okay moving forward,
Absolutely.
you can start the list, and then we need to hold a public hearing before we withdraw funds.
Did he, I know he was, one of the things that was pretty high on the mechanical report was replacing of the heating, cooling, or the heating units within the classrooms. Has he gotten any quotes on that?
I don't believe so. I shouldn't say. I'm not.
So-
can't speak to that if he has or has not.
I used to design mechanical systems way back in time.
You've mentioned that.
I can call somebody I know and find out if there's a better way to do what we're doing, at least to get some information, some background stuff. So if you want to pass on to Mike, I'll make a phone call or two, and I and somebody will reach out to him, at least for the fact-finding side of it, and see if there's
And that's,
better way.
something that'll save us money.
Yeah, if there's a better way, so I'll make a phone call and at least try to get them to come in and look at what we have and see if there's a better way, and then if there is, we can start looking at that.
All right, thank you for getting the report together, appreciate it. Any other questions on the facility needs? All right, let's go on to the fiscal year 18 retainage. Patty, do you want to read this one?
So you have updated numbers as of today from Amber, and you had chosen some number of years ago to use the retainage option that was added by statute to retain 2.5% of your valuation per year. So she gave you the amount up to that you can choose to retain. Last year you chose to retain $190,000. So she's given you what your bottom line was. That you'll see that $190,000 is added back in. So unless you take a vote again to retain that amount or some other amount, it gets added back into the surplus automatically.
So the maximum we can retain is $253,000.
Correct.
We have consistently, for the last 3 or 4 years, retained 190, correct?
I think it's been the last 3 years we've done 190.
What is the wish of the board?
Make a motion if you'd like. If we retain 189.10. Because at the budget committee, it's a lot easier for you to remember $400,000 fund balance than it's anything else.
Motion?
$189,010.
Yes. Just makes a round number going back to the town.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
If we do 190, then we're giving back 399,000.
So that would mean $400,000 goes back to the general fund for the town. Any discussion? No. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Alright.
So the update from this Amber, I'll send this number to Amber tonight, and she's hoping to have the MS-25 done for you to sign on Friday. So I will email all of you, if you want to keep an eye out on your email, we need a form of the board to sign that. She'll submit it to the DOE, and she'll also get your revenue sheet done. Once that's done and submitted, they can do tax rate setting.
I have a question for you. Are we a quorum at 2 now, or are we a quorum at 3?
That's a good question.
It's gotta be 50% plus one, isn't that what I ordered?
So I think it still stays 3.
I think so too.
Alright.
I'll make sure that.
Alright, that takes care of that. Board reports, PTO. Hey.
Hi. We had our first meeting of the school year last night. A lot of new faces. Like 4. That's a lot. Hoping to gain more new faces. I have the meetings at night now. They'll be at 6 o'clock there on the school calendar. Fundraising is happening. Packets have gone home with students. A letter explaining our individual banking system will be going home as well. We just wanted to clarify with the fundraiser what the percentages were. This fundraiser will be at 20% to the student, 20% to PTO, or 40%. That's going on. Our townwide yard sale is October 6th, and registration forms are out and about. They're in the bridge, they're forum online. You can print a copy. I believe the school has a copy. You can either be sent to the school, or you can email Andrea Bolton. She will add you to the map, and then the maps will go on sale October 1st.
Yes. Quick question for you. You know, another parent in town through this, I mean, it kind of ties to the fundraising, and it's an alternative fundraiser that maybe you guys want to look at. And so, do we know about how much like the average kid generates from fundraising on any given year, or how much?
There are people who probably know that, and I'm not that person.
So what this person had said to me, he said instead of sending home 6 or 7 fundraisers, he'd rather just opt out of the fundraisers and cut a check.
You are absolutely at any time welcome to send us a check and we will cash it.
So I guess what I'm throwing out there is the PTO look at a non-fundraiser fundraiser where basically it says, hey, we'll leave you alone, not leave you alone, but we won't do fundraisers. You won't. You're good.
We need to raise this amount
But-
per child.
So if you want to send us if you said to me, send me a $200 check.
I think there are reasons we can't do that.
Okay.
I don't know what.
And this is something that's thrown at me, but I said when I heard it, I'm like, I would probably do that. I'd probably say, okay, here's $200. It's going $50.
There are parents
Yeah.
who do that. There are parents who definitely send us.
It
a
would
check
be
and-
cheaper than buying the stuff on the fundraisers, I think, in the grand scheme of things. So I'm just
and
throwing
you
that.
don't need more stuff in your house.
Right.
Thing.
I'm always
Yeah.
liberating my house and
We
stuff.
definitely have parents who say, can I just send you a check and make it out to the PTO?
Okay. So I'm just throwing that out there. If you guys ever wanted to explore something thrown at me, and I actually thought it was I kind of like the idea.
Yeah.
In the past, the map for the townwide yard sale.
Yep.
You know who's got that, right?
Yes.
The lady who lives in my house.
Yeah.
You're welcome to ping her again.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, I will mention that
Your
too.
wife knows there's a lady living in your house?
Yeah.
I will mention that.
Yeah.
We are also still in need of a couple of room parents for a couple of first grade classes of all things. I think a first grade class and a fourth grade class, so. Wants to sign up to be a room parent?
Anything else?
And volunteer applications are being sent in, those went home. We sent a copy to every parent, every child went in their Friday folder. Normally we would send to the youngest child in the family, but the new computer system, I guess, can't pull that report yet. So rather than miss someone and have them wonder why I didn't get one, we sent one to every student for parents to send back in, which means that some families may have gotten multiples. So if anybody has blanks, they can please send them back in. We can reuse them next year or use them again this year.
All right. Executive board report. You haven't met.
We did last week.
You did?
Yes.
I missed it.
We
I
presented,
apologize.
that's okay, we presented the first draft of the SAU budget and we hired a part-time ESOL teacher for some students that have come to our district and need English language learner services.
Principals report. Swifty.
Right. We are wrapping up the emergency operation plan with Denny and Mark Fisher and Gary Duquette. A couple other members. It is pretty much finished. So the next meeting we have, which will be after the Deerfield Fair, is just to get it all ready to get signed by the appropriate parties. We had a word cafe in our library last week with some delicious reading going on. Nate, I know, is doing an update on CRB, where we had our first CRB meeting, Curriculum Review Board meeting this past week. Our bus evacuation got rescheduled for next Tuesday because it was supposed to be yesterday. And I don't know if you saw the rain come in yesterday, but it was not a good day for a bus evacuation. In Alma, we're continuing the process of making it the way we, so that it will work for us. We've had in-depth conversations with a couple of people from the SAU. So that's still, people are still working hard at getting that up and running to the capacity that it can. We held district leadership here today, so principals, assistant principals, special ed coordinators from all over the district, including our SAU. Patty and Peter Warburton was here for a short time. The topic of discussion for our leadership was QPA, quality performance assessments, and we had Kristen Davis and Heidi Cook do a wonderful presentation for the leadership, as that's a goal for the district to move towards. And Deerfield is quite ahead of the curve in terms of where the district is as a whole. We've done a lot. I certainly haven't, being new here. But the quality performance assessment work started about 4 years ago here at Deerfield, so some people haven't even started that work in the district. We have, I've started some budget talks with some key players. I know that's going to be an important.
So much fun.
So much. It's fun meeting with people. We have a preschool curriculum night tomorrow night from 5 to 6. And we have advisory day on Friday, where our 6th graders will be going to a corn maze. Our 7th graders will be going to Northwood Meadow and Appleview Apple Orchard. And then on Monday will be our magnet day. There's a big cross-country meet, so we had to reschedule our magnet day for Monday because a good number of 8th graders, God bless you, a few 7th graders were affected. So we did change magnet day for 8th graders to Monday. Let's see, I spoke with Lori Lopez this past week regarding, or maybe it was last week, I don't know what day it was. Sometimes right after I saw you, yeah. In regards to the enrichment club, I've had a few teachers reach out saying that they're interested. Minecraft club, a homework club, we have somebody interested in that if she can work the dates out that she has, make sure there's no conflict in her schedule, and a board games club in addition to the things that Lori already has planned with her connections that she has. There'll probably be about 8 to 10 enrichment clubs here for the first session, which she's hoping to start end of October.
Could I encourage you guys to make sure that that program has a seat at the table when you guys discuss with the Parks and Rec folks about space and how to integrate all that?
I'm assuming that we're not charging any type of fee for kids to come to the homework club, as we've done for some other activities.
I think the idea was that it would be whatever the normal club fee would be, but not an additional fee, is that, no, it's just free.
Yeah,
Oh,
just, yeah,
yes, we
we'll
did talk
pay,
about that,
yeah,
thank
we'll
you.
pay the staff member.
Yes,
To run
we
the
did talk
program,
about that.
but we wanna make sure it's open to all students, especially, we've had an issue, Brian and I talked about, after school, for the athletes that don't start practice until 4:30, our athletic director has provided basically supervision to those kids on her own time, on her own dime for a very long time, so being able to move those kids into the homework clubs would be to keep them busy and doing their homework and free up the staff member that's been giving up their time for a lot of years, I guess.
And the last thing is that some 8th graders planted mums at the fairgrounds today for their 8th grade fundraiser. Yeah. I do have an enrollment update as well. Do you want to go over that now?
Sure.
Brian and Candy and I have taken a look at the chart, the projected class sizes for 1920. We don't obviously have all those numbers, but I did update it with the 18-19 numbers. Elma is saying that our numbers are 557 today, but this report is saying that we're at 543. So we think we might have some preschoolers in there that need to come out. I know that the beginning of year report is due by this Friday, so Candy is going to do some work with teasing out what's going on and why those numbers different. So, and as the year goes on, obviously we'll be able to fill in the 1920 list, but right now these are numbers for the 18-19.
Any questions for Principal Withy? Thank you very much. Curriculum Review Board.
Can I just go back 1 second?
Sure.
Sorry. Are you gonna go over Heidi's math corner?
Yeah, do we have?
that with you?
I do. I wasn't sure if that was in the other informational items or not.
Yeah, if you can do that now and then I'll
Sure, of
go over
course.
the whole thing. Yeah, thanks.
Heidi Cook is going to have a parent math academy. I like how she called it an academy. I'll hand this out so you can see the description. So Heidi Cook, our math specialist, and Erica Martin, our other math specialist, will be hosting a series of family math nights throughout the remainder of the year in hopes to review with parents what their children are learning in math this year and offer resources and strategies for how you can support child's learning outside the classroom. The first academy will be on Thursday, October 18th at 6 o'clock from 6 to 7. And the highlights that they'll be sharing that night is giving an overview of what is Eureka Math, resources available to support families, reviewing homework helpers to see if that's something that we want to purchase in the future, and then taking a deeper look at some tools that students use currently using Eureka Math to solve problems such as the number bond, the tape diagram, and visualizing fractions. She goes into further detail, but those are the highlights.
Did you want to talk about that now?
No, I have an informational item to the side.
Okay.
Thank you.
Curriculum Review Board, Mr. Oxner.
We met for the first time last couple days ago, first time for the year, and a couple things were done there too. Curricula were approved, the wellness curriculum and the music curriculum, and so we can expect those to come to the board, I believe, in 2 weeks, next meeting. Wellness and music for board approval. And as well, there's been a little bit of uncertainty as we've worked through the past couple curricula. There's been a little bit of uncertainty on kind of this annual sort of cycling calendar, and so and exactly the protocol for how the CRB works. And so the CRB has been working on establishing sort of a protocol, a codified set of sort of procedures for how it works, what it is, what its mission is, what it does, who's on it. An annual calendar, and so that document is going to be finalized in the next couple of weeks, and potentially on the new website. That would be a great. I think we're planning on putting it up on the website for public access. Better idea about what the CRB does and how we do what we do. So you can expect that in the next couple of weeks, I think. That's it.
All right. Space Needs Committee. Mr.
Right.
Heckman.
We will be meeting tomorrow night. Which will be our first meeting in quite a while, but we posted that out with an agenda. So we'll be discussing a mission statement, reviewing the demographic report, going over the numbers there that we received, and talking about what it means and the what we want to do going forward. I think we still need to identify more data sources as before fleshing out the information that we have, so we can identify really where we're at and where we sit in the trend of the county and the state and various levels. But it's really, the first meeting is going to be a public working session to discuss, identifying those sorts of things and where we want to go from there. So it'll be tomorrow night here at 6:30.
Do you have a number of new members?
I've had 2 or 3 people reach out to me about attending, and then we'll see what we get from the public that just show up.
Anybody who wants to volunteer for a committee? That's a highly needed committee.
I already volunteered my husband.
Ah, all right.
Well, I'll volunteer mine too.
That's not volunteering, that's volunteering.
He already knows, it's fine, he already ran into it.
It looks like do you want to?
Yeah, so what this committee's going to do is we all know that we've heard it in various frameworks here tonight about the population problem. I don't want to say problem, but the challenges that the heightened population is bringing to us. And we've had a demographic study done. We're going to discuss the results of that, but I think there's more data that we can gather to get a better picture of where we're at right now and whether or not the trend that is indicated that we all kind of know anecdotally, that we're booming and that other places aren't. We want to put numbers to that and see if that's true or where we're at in that picture. And then from there, once we identify where we're at and where we think we are on the trend curve, then we can start talking about needs, what going forward, and identifying other issues. Please.
There you go. You got someone else. Right.
Budget.
NBC, correct.
So, we met for the first meeting since elections occurred last night. Andrea Hodling has been named as the chair of the NBC for this year. John Dubianski will be the vice chair again. We had most of the committee there last night. It was 9 of the 11 members. Pretty quick meeting. Next meeting is scheduled for October 30th. At that point, the schedule will get set for the balance of the cycle. But the intentions will be 7 o'clock on Tuesdays, and the chair person is in the process of determining the Tuesdays of the meeting. Questions that came to us from the NBC, obviously fund balance and how that looked. I gave them some preliminary numbers that Patty provided. So they are aware there is a fund balance and a certain amount will be coming back, but nothing definitive. Now it's definitive, obviously, last night it was all speculative. We talked about, a little bit about space needs, there were some questions about, are we doing an addition, are we adding modulars, explaining again, we're early in the process for all that. They asked about budget delivery, and I told them we would be following protocol that we could precedent from last year, which was we would be completing it, and then handing them a finalized, done, voted on, and approved budget from the school board to the NBC. They seemed receptive to that. We talked about that we have a contract coming up this year for negotiations as well. They've been seeing that, we're through with it. So that's about it for right now. And obviously, October 30th, I think we'll start diving into the town's budget and start picking off the low-hanging fruit from the town's budget. And we'll get into the thick of it in November.
Sounds good. All right. What do we have? We're doing pretty good. 7:40.
Something's not right.
It's not even halftime. Did anybody order pizza this time?
I didn't. I can't. I hear them on the cover, right?
For those who haven't been to these meetings before, they usually last 3 to 4 hours. All right. EEA, transportation, first reading.
Say 3 or 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's a relatively short one.
It's not even
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Now it's every 2 weeks. Yeah, that's why it's not bigger than that.
All right. EEA is put on the agenda. We're looking at our transportation. So this, there definitely needs to be a more effective way to track what the most useful routes are. It is more incumbent upon Dale to do that, in my opinion, but we can't make them do that because contractually we haven't done it. We entered into are we in a 10-year agreement with them? Or?
It's 5.
5 years. Is there anybody wants to talk about on the EEA transportation policy right now?
It is just a first reading, right?
Correct.
I think genuinely, I think the biggest solution is going to be as we get into budget stuff is determining whether or not we want to look at adding that 8 bus back and freeing up capacity across the board.
Right.
So I think part of the process is looking at an 8 bus route, seeing what an 8 bus set of routes look like. And I don't know if we have historical routes from before, at least as a preliminary thing to see how it mixes it. But I think budgetarily we need to be looking at that as a potential option. I'm not necessarily advocating for one way or another, but it just needs to be part of that discussion when we get into the budgets. If we can maybe, when we do get into it, have that information available. As far as policy goes,
routes should be designed to be as time and energy efficient as possible, and you should. It should be looked at as effectively as possible. And I volunteered to do that last year. I will continue to push through with some mapping analytics on that.
Yeah, I would think that the term designed needs to be clarified.
So just for those in the audience who haven't been at a school board meeting before, policies are not changed in the first reading. We don't want to surprise anybody in the community. It is usually read through, suggestions are made, edits are brought in the next meeting. You can vote on it on a second reading or a third reading, but typically on a third reading, so that people know what's coming.
And we're always open to comments. Not during a meeting, but
Not during
outside
the
a meeting.
I have a question. You mentioned what's in the contract.
You can't ask a question now. All right.
So put it on the next agenda?
I would put it on the next agenda.
Yeah.
might have a couple of suggestions for it.
Before we move on from this one, is it not policy related, but we kind of mentioned it previously, and we're going to say we might come back to it. The idea of setting up some sort of a committee to look at currently either adjusting routes or come up with a system that would, during the day, give us a more concrete number about how many kids are signed up for a bus, kind of real time.
It's a staffing issue. I mean, that's a burden to put upon the staff if you start moving pieces, even though there may be a software that does it more effectively. But if you open up that door and things start moving around, who does that? Is that Candy learning a new software? And I'm not going to turn around and look at it.
And what are the chances that with this development in the Parks and Rec that this issue is going to be somewhat resolved? There will be more space because the Parks and Rec kids will move back to the.
I have a map that's already done of the location of where all of the kids are in elementary and all of the kids are in high school. I have not laid. We haven't overlaid the individual routes, and then there are multiple different factors in regards to the routes and the length of the route, the time the kids are on the bus, and the amount of time that the bus takes to stop at each individual location. And a shorter route that has 40 stops can take as long as Tina's route that goes all over the place. So it requires a little bit of analysis to effectively provide information. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that Nate makes a good point that there should be some sort of committee that does oversee that sort of thing, takes that information and tries to design or oversee some sort of system or make a recommendation for a scheduling system or something
We
like
just
that.
have to remember that our contract doesn't necessarily.
Right, I mean, it's all, the committee can review the processes and make recommendations without affecting the contract.
We can also ask Dale to make changes, but at a certain point, Dale can say, "You gave us something in September, or you gave us something in August."
Totally agree. I'm just
The policy outlines a process to begin with anyway, so I think updating the policy, the processes for the policies, is probably the most effective way for us to do it. But we have to be mindful of the contract. And we've agreed to 3 years with the contract, we're on 2 at the moment.
The contract doesn't affect
5 years of contract.
during a school day at 10 a.m. Can you know how many kids will be on a bus?
I think I would review the contract and say that is.
The contract does not require any kind of.
I guess I'm saying if it doesn't have to go to the bus. Oh, but you're saying even having somebody looking at that number from the school, currently that's not an issue that the school. Currently, that's not a responsibility that anybody in the office has. Is that what you're saying? That is totally done by this.
I believe changes in transportation are things that Candy does because our policy says that
It comes to the office.
it comes to the office, but in terms of rerouting, is that what you're talking
I'm
about?
not
Like
saying
rerouting kids within a
No, I'm
bus?
saying that if
Or reassigning?
by let's say hypothetically by 11 a.m. can you know how many kids are signed up to be on the blue bus that afternoon? And then if there is space for
How would
3
you
more
know?
kids.
Well, that's what we want to
That's
find
what I'm
out.
talking about. That's the data that
I'm sure there's probably technology out there
But
that you can, but
Every
it's a
student
communication
has to
issue.
punch into a system, and every student has to check in, or somebody has to check every student into that system, right?
Because I know there are people
That's
sitting
going
in the
to-
audience who have kids who 2 days a week go to one place and 3 days a week go
But
to
if they
another
can,
place.
but if they can lay that out
My
ahead
kids
of
go to
time.
Parks and Rec 2 days a week, and they go home 3 days a week.
But is that consistent all year?
If they can put it,
so many
if they can
variables.
dump it into
So
something like
Well,
a
there's an
Google
app
Right.
that you can-
Calendar.
Yes, there are apps, but however, where is the manpower? Where is the volunteer power? We have one person in the audience who said they wanted to start a committee. Where is the volunteer power to actually crank all this data and come up with reasonable proposals?
At this point, the office takes phone calls up until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know. Like Kelly said, I have no idea how they manage all this. So that's retraining for parents too. That you need to know where your kid is going in the morning, because in order for them to manage the front office and make sure the kids get on the right bus and the bus drivers know and the teachers know,
Not at all,
that's
realistically.
really, it's
another
really
position.
chaotic.
We have a thin front office. I'm sure people will have to say that, but I think we have a thin front office for the amount of things that are required. So, it is an ongoing problem. If anybody's interested in participating and weighing in and helping to provide analytics, definitely reach out to the administration and they can head you in the right direction. All right. EFDA, meal payment code change to EFAA. Is this simply a change?
It is. I just wanted to put it on the agenda for the record to show that that policy is just going to be changed. The name is going to change, the coding to EFAA. Right now it's EFDA, so no changes are being made to the policy other than the coding.
So other than, well, this one's just a coding change, can we handle this one now and be done
Yes.
with it? So I'll move that we change policy EFDA to policy EFAA.
Second. All right, we're breaking protocol here, guys.
It's not a change in policy, it's just a change in coding.
Strange
Is it
acronym.
It's a clerical thing.
All in favor?
Aye.
JFAB.
JFAB is a required policy by law that we need to add that you don't currently have, as is the next policy. So admission and tuition non-resident students is the first one. The next one is teaching about alcohol and drugs. Those are both first readings. So if everyone could look those over and come back with any suggested language changes, or give them to me in between now and the board meeting. And it would be something good for administration to take as well. See if you have any input in that.
All right, any questions on either of those policies or?
One other thing that I wanted to mention, I received a request for the board to consider policy allowing the local police department to have access to our surveillance cameras in case of an emergency. I have policy language that was developed for Pembroke with attorneys from both the Pembroke Police Department and the school district. I can bring that policy forward. We didn't want to do that without getting your permission and to see if you would be interested in something
So they
like that.
requested
Yes.
access
Our
to it?
during the emergency operations planning.
The PD did.
I think we talked about it together. The tech integrator is the one that asked about it. So it was a mutual.
So is it for like one specific instance, or are they just going to be able to tap in anytime?
No, that's part of the legal. That's the legal language. Is they cannot use it for monitoring students. That it's only in specific emergencies, and they have to sign that they will not have access to them for any other purposes.
I would be okay looking at that.
Yep. I'll put that in the next meeting.
IHAMA. IHAMA.
Yep, that's the other
No,
required.
sorry. Ken's shoulder here because I lost my agenda in my pile of paper. There we are. Informational items. SAU full board meeting.
Yep, October 10th.
Where are we this time?
We are in Epsom. The other informational items I had, you asked me to get some information from the school attorney regarding the land request that you received. So if there were to be a land transfer, we would need to have a warrant article to approve that, and we would also need to research to make sure the land was not conveyed to the district with any restrictions or in any trust, like to be used for school purposes only. And then assuming that there was no restriction, you could move forward, you could transfer for $1, but you would have to go through surveying and marking bounds and all that good stuff that Dean can help us with if you decided that was something you wanted to pursue.
So would require a warrant article.
Yes. Yes. And then for the landing zone, whatever it's gonna be called, the airstrip, you could do a long-term lease of the property, like 20 years renewable by an agreement for up to 10-year terms, but if it was a long-term lease, it would require approval as a warrant article. And the lease agreement would allocate the liability and the maintenance responsibility.
So could we do, for the fire department, could we do an annual lease for $1?
I believe that could
Sure.
be done. I would want
Could do
Dean
a
to
lease.
draft up, something for us.
And the fire department's request to have a spot to bring a helicopter. One of us is having a heart attack or needs a helicopter in the middle of winter.
Right.
I would like them to be able to have a location.
But I hear you on not setting it at 10 years, because
Well, and I think it doesn't need to be that complicated, I don't think.
Right.
I think it could just be an annual lease. So I guess that would be my question.
that would require a warrant article as well. Right?
Not if you do a short-term lease. I guess the other thing is you probably want to make a decision regarding the other request. Because if you break off a parcel,
Well, the other request hasn't been formally made by the.
They wanted to see if it was plausible.
Of interest.
Right.
It is plausible. So I guess the question in front of us is does this board want to consider giving a piece of that land to the town?
if you haven't made that decision, you may not want to go forward with the lease until you know whether or not you can parcel out the land. I can put it on the agenda for the next meeting if you want to discuss it.
I think we need to think about it.
There will be another, actually, not be another building committee meeting until after affairs, so. We haven't set a date yet, it either may be the Monday before our next meeting, or maybe the following Monday. It's been narrowed down to 3 basic thoughts right now.
Is this one of them?
The school land, I would say still on the table, but probably not the strongest candidate.
Okay, I'll put it on. If we don't need to, we don't have to use it. The other informational item, the staff has made a request. So tonight, Kristen reviewed the Math Academy that the staff is putting on. The staff requested a spot on the agenda and would like to be here whenever possible to do a board report like the PTO does and like Kristen does to let you guys know stuff that might be going on in the school, like this Math Academy. That would be okay to add them to the agenda.
Are you okay with that?
Of course.
If she's okay with it, you're okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Okay, we'll do that. That's it for information.
All right, any other informational items? Just a quick question, and last time we talked about modulars a little bit. Were you guys able to get any prices on modulars? Or? No.
Not yet.
Okay.
Give a quick turnaround.
I know. That's why I'm just asking.
Shorten that window.
Yeah, even shorter.
Yeah.
Just have a whole month to throw something out there.
Yeah.
I know.
I know.
It is. I'm sure we can Google
A few
it.
kids prevented me.
Let me Google that for you.
There's a few kids prevented me from doing that.
I am still working on my draft of the chapter of the capital improvement.
That was a topic of the NBC as well, of
Right.
moving money into the planning boards. The NBC is interested in making sure the planning board's budget has enough money in it to facilitate
Planner.
the needs of drafting or redoing the CIP.
The town is overdue for
The town has started talking about it, and the NBC has started talking about it. We were talking about it as well, so.
I have been reading through other towns' capital improvement plans, and it is not uncommon for the school to not be included in it, which is very interesting.
In New Hampshire.
Yeah. I was actually reading Lee's. Mr. River does it separately as a whole school district.
Can we do our own independent planning board on those?
The attorney's opinion was we are part of the
The town.
town's capital plan. We should not be acting independently on
Okay.
our own. That was one opinion.
So maybe I will go to one of the planning board meetings and just have a conversation with them. As I want to move forward with that as soon as appropriate.
Well, the NBC and the Board of Selectmen sound like they are supporting updating the
What's overdue? It's overdue. planning boards are supposed to do that.
Positive conversation.
Excellent. Anything else informational?
Public comments.
Yeah, just while they're commenting on the, there's a contract with the transportation company, but I still see an opportunity to challenge them and set expectations for whatever service and how they run. I mean, I'm not saying breach the contract, but it's not that they should be the ones that can't do something like that. Software technology to facilitate alleviate the needs and constraints that are here to the best of the abilities, financial burden on us necessarily. And properly, it shouldn't be something where it can be kind of an extra data entry. It should be something that is communicated. Parents can do that. It goes into a system and we can be a consumer of the data. And the offers on the table to the system. As my kids were impacted, I don't think the biggest complaint where I work, I typically known as cleaner for difficult situations across the
Okay. Any other public comments? All right. We are now going to go into non-public session. So, as per NHRSA 91-A:3(2), which one do we need?
C.
C. I would entertain a motion to go into non-public.
So moved. Second.
Yes.
Me,
Yes.
Zach, Jim, yes.
Yep.
Ken. Yes. And I would also say let's take a 5-minute recess.
You guys are free to go?
Yes.
There's somebody here to lock the building.